Well, good day! So for today's video, I would like to go way back and talk about the first time we ever seen a DC animated cartoon. Of course, I'm talking about the legendary Max Fleischer Superman cartoons from 1941 and 42, the first cartoon appearance of Superman. So as per the usual, I will follow this little guideline of how we do things on this channel here, and then yeah. So alright, let's go! Alright, so we start off in space looking at this beautiful planet known as Krypton, a planet full of life and superhuman people, and it's gone. Exploded! But there was one rocket that left the planet. It was carrying the infant child of Krypton's greatest scientist, and bam! That rocket landed on Earth, where the infant inside was taken to an orphanage to be raised by orphaneers. That doesn't actually sound accurate, but yeah, okay, we'll go with that, I guess. And at this orphanage, the young child learned about his extraordinary powers. So, that child's all grown up now, an adult. He assumes the dual identity of Superman, champion of the oppressed, and a human disguise of Clark Kent, which I'm assuming the orphan organizers kind of gave him that name just out of the blue, but it sounds good. So adult Clark goes to the city metropolis where he gets a job as a mild-mannered reporter for the Daily Planet.
And at the Daily Planet,
The Planet editor, Perry White, calls in his two best journalists, Clark Kent and Lois Lane, about another threatening message they got from
the Mad Scientist.
He states that he will attack the city at midnight with his oh gosh, how do you pronounce this? Electrothanasia ray. So Lois, being the go-getter that she is, she hops on an airplane and flies to the Mad Scientist Island so she can get the story on this. And you gotta ask yourself, why isn't the police or the army flying over to that island as well? If it's such common knowledge to know where this guy lives and operates, why isn't anyone stopping him, right? Like, maybe they didn't get the memo.
Anywho,
So the Mad Scientist and his pet bird notice this plane landing on his island, so they go take a gander at what's going on there. They see Lois Lane and boom! She's kidnapped! She's tied up! And realistically, what did she really think was gonna happen with this guy who self-proclaims himself as mad? So the aforementioned Mad Scientist shows off his awesome ray for Lois's amusement, and he melts part of the tower bridge like it was absolute butter. So Clark Kent hears the radio report of this bridge attack, and he changes into his Superman outfit and boom, goes out to get this guy. But the Mad Scientist has targeted a skyscraper and is in the process of knocking it down. But Superman goes to this building that looks like it's made out of rubber and sets it back upright, and then he goes and acts like a shield for the building against this ray beam. And he's pushing back against the ray beam to the source where it comes from so he can stop the Mad Scientist. But even with the beam's power being increased, Superman still pushes forward. He gets to the barrel of the ray cannon and ties it up so like it's just a power back loop which actually explodes the ray gun itself. So the Mad Scientist layer is falling apart all around him. Everything's on fire. Superman gathers up Lois and the Mad Scientist to get them out of the place before it blows up real good like. He brings them back both to safety where the Mad Scientist is thrown in jail, and Lois Lane, who got a perfect front row seat to the entire happenings of everything, wrote a stellar story which sold more copies of the Daily Planet than any other newspaper that day, I'm assuming, and it was all thanks to Superman, so it's all good. And with that, that is the end of this fantastic tale. Whew, man, it's like really hot in here today. Holy crap. Man, so these old Superman cartoons are just like so freaking awesome, and it really wouldn't be a surprise if you've ever watched any work from Max Fleischer before, right? Like his old cartoons like Popeye, Betty Boop, and other ones like that, man, they're all like top notch, and to see him do that all with Superman as well, like, there was something just so freaking amazing about these really intricate cartoons that were hand-drawn and hand-painted, you know, kind of compared to these CGI cartoons of nowadays. It just has that extra, you know, je ne sais quoi to it, right? And like I usually say, man, it is so phenomenal to see a character that's been around for so long and see how he looks in different eras and what his story is in different, you know, decades and whatnot. So to watch a Superman cartoon from the 1940s is phenomenal, and to watch a current show in 2022 of Superman is phenomenal as well. And how completely different they are, but still the same, you know? And these cartoons are, quite science fiction kind of styles, man. You have this mad scientist with this incredible ray gun that, can destroy parts of a city. Like, I think even back in the day when this episode first came out, like, that story wasn't really fresh and new or anything, but it was still kind of like a story of the times, really, right? Like, that's kind of what the science fiction was back then. And so, yeah, Superman is pretty awesome in this cartoon. Clark Kent is pretty suave as compared to his comic counterpart at the time, where he was really more of a dork. So it is nice for them to kind of change up that character to be a bit more relatable to more people. And even Lois Lane, man, she kicked absolute ass in this episode. I really do love how she has always been that go-getter and just get the job done kind of a character, but it's even more so in this one. Like, she wants to go talk to the mad scientist, so she just gets on a plane and flies there. Like, man, she would probably swim across the ocean just to talk to the guy, Like, that's pretty hardcore. Even though she's easily caught by the mad scientist and put into danger, which is kind of a trope with the character and every other character kind of revolving around Clark Kent, but still, it's pretty cool to see her kick butt, for a while. And like, being kidnapped and almost blown up doesn't even faze her. I got to say, man, if you've never actually seen these cartoons, like, do yourself a favor and check some of them out. And so, yeah, so we got a whole lot more things to talk about and other things that were talked about that I'll talk about, and then we'll kind of go from there or something like that right now. So one quick little awesome item, like, we have seen a live action Superman many times with slightly different variations of the costume, from project to project, but there was only one time so far where we have seen the live action version of a Max Fleischer Superman uniform with the black logo and the red belt and all those small details. That was in Superman Lois Season 1 for some of his flashback origin scenes, and even with that green car in the background, which is reminiscent of Action Comics #1 cover. Like, man, such a small little detail, but like, it just speaks volumes, man. Yeah. So right off the bat, I'm just gonna say that I did talk a lot more about Superman Fleischer cartoons, history, its influences from the Superman radio show, and how this cartoon shaped Superman's future quite a bit here. So I'm not gonna rehash a whole lot of that things, because I planned out these YouTube videos so incredibly well when I first started doing this stuff here. So if you do want to take a look into all that stuff, how this show came to be and who was involved and all that stuff, I definitely recommend checking out my Mechanical Monsters video for Superman. I'll have that linked above right here. Yeah. And now, on to the current video. So it is pretty interesting in these early days how Superman had a bunch of different origin stories. They were all mostly the same, but some changes hither and thither. So in the comics, in Action Comics #1, the baby in a rocket was indeed found by an unidentified couple and then sent to the orphanage. So that is fairly accurate. But in Superman #1, that story was later updated to Jonathan and Martha, why did you say that name, Kent, were the unidentified couple who found the baby and went back to adopt the child, and then was later changed again to they just outright kept the child. It's constantly changing, but was eventually established that the Kents did raise the child. And when the Kents died, that's when Clark went to Metropolis. In the radio show, the trip from Krypton to Earth was so long that by the time baby Kal-El arrived on Earth, he was already a fully grown adult. Some random strangers gave him the name Clark Kent, and he went to Metropolis with Superman, Daily Planet, and all that stuff there. And as we see in this featured episode, the baby was brought to an orphanage to be raised there, keeping with the initial origin, and we have no idea when he actually left the orphanage or if he was adopted. But either way, it is a good thing that they've constantly gone back to the Martha and Jonathan Smallville storyline with Superman's kind of youthful origin, so these other kind of instances, however interesting, it's glad we don't really see them anymore. So in this featured cartoon series, actually, we see Superman fighting against, mad scientists, mad industrialists, or any kind of robot building kind of bad guy, and not really any supervillain from the comic books, because really at this time in the comics, Superman didn't really have any supervillains per se, maybe a handful, but most of the time he went up against fighting against the mob or any kind of group or organization that was really oppressing people in any kind of way, because because at this point he was known as the champion of the oppressed, so he would help anybody out who he could. So although the mad scientist in this episode wasn't in the comics, you could say that he was really strongly influenced by Superman's first arch nemesis, which was the Golden Age Ultra Humanite. He was first introduced in Action Comics number 13 in 1939, and realistically it was like the prototype version of Lex Luthor. You know, he was incredibly smart, and it was his brains versus Superman's brawn kind of a storyline. This mad scientist could, you know, build any fantastic devices. He was very industrialist. Like, it was actually pretty neat to see him around quite a bit. So even though they're not the same characters, you could say that the character from the cartoon was like an earlier, younger version of the Ultra Humanite, you know, from the comics. Because yeah, in the comics he was, you know, wheelchair bound. He was kind of quite old, and yeah, quite of a bit different, but still kind of had the same basicness to the guy, right? And as we've seen in the comics, Ultra Humanite can transfer his brain into other bodies. So during the Silver Age of comics, he has transferred his brain into the body of an albino gorilla, so quite a bit different from his original counterpart, you know, but, you know. So there are some things that happened in this cartoon series that, you know, really started a lot of mythos for Superman. For example, in the Mechanical Monsters episode, that was the first time Clark Kent changed into Superman in a phone booth. In this episode, the first time that Clark Kent looks at the camera at the end of the episode and winks at the audience when somebody, you know, thanks Superman for saving the day, you know, like he's giving us the nod, like, haha,
We know, but they don't know.
the first time that happened was in this episode. And this was a thing that would happen in a lot of other Superman shows. George Reeves did that all the time in his awesome and amazing live action Superman show. The Filmation Superman cartoon in the 60s did the same thing at the end with the little wink. And you would kind of see that hither and thither in other Superman shows, but you know, it all started here, which was actually quite a cute little thing to do, so good on them. This episode was the first cartoon appearance of Superman / Clark Kent, of Lois Lane, and Perry White. You did not see a bunch of other characters just yet, you know, like Jimmy Olsen or Clark Kent's parents, Kal-El's parents, or anything like that. Like, you've seen Krypton, but that's about it. And even in the comics, that's how it kind of went with Krypton. You would see the quick basis of, you know, Krypton, all stuff exploded, but you never really got anything in depth until further down the line. Then they decided, you know, we should really explore the stuff. So that kind of follows the comics pretty good in this cartoon. They just never got back to talking about Krypton. But yeah, so for now, that's all I pretty much got for all that kind of stuff going on there. And yeah, I guess with all that, that's that. Right on, and there you go. So thanks for watching the video. I hope you liked it as much as I did making it. Also, feel free to check out the source material that I featured in this video. And if you want to leave a comment on anything you may have liked or things I might have missed in this, you know, feel free to do so. Or anything else, you know, just to say hi. That's cool too. And other than that, you know, have a great day. Thanks.